So, before you can be a senator, obviously you have to win. And looking at Senator Bill Nelson, what are your main complaints about his performance, and what do you think you could do better?
Well, when I look at Mr. Nelson, as well as some of his, or most of his Democratic colleagues, I guess what I don't like is their voting record. I don't like the way they've supported the Obama agenda. I think that the economy is going in the wrong direction. I think the country's headed in the wrong direction. I think we've got to get back to protecting the principles and the values that made this country great. I think we need to get the federal government out of the lives of the citizens in the states and keep them contained within the powers granted to them under the Constitution. And we need to get back to making sure the Constitution is enforced as the law of the land.
Fair enough. Now, obviously, before you can face Senator Bill Nelson in the general, you have to win a primary. How do you evaluate the rest of this primary field on the Republican side, and where do you think that you're the best candidate?
Well, yeah, we don't really like to talk much about the other candidates, but I feel confident that there's no doubt that they've got a very good choice to make here as far as differentiation. I'm the everyday citizen. Okay. I am not a career politician. I'm not a lawyer. Mm-hmm. I'm the guy, again, that's just kind of an everyday person, worked every day of my life, raised my kid, put him through school. I was very fortunate. He's doing very well. But, there were days that it was a real trial and a challenge. But,
always work.
When you look at America today, the challenges of being a single parent, single custodial parent, but I wouldn't have that any other way. And I think, too, that when I look at my experience in education, I've been very fortunate. And we've got to make sure in our country that we are educating our students to meet this onslaught of global competition. We are going to have to do a better job educating our students if we want them to go out and compete for jobs in this global economy. Agribusiness, again, people can talk about it, but I got an undergrad degree in agriculture, and I have a nursery license, and I'm a practicing professional. And agribusiness is still a core industry for our state and our nation, and the Senate has an agriculture committee. National defense, national security, I'll be happy to put my record up against any of the others running, including Bill Nelson. And that's probably one reason we're under such attack. I think some people look at maybe the other candidates, whether it be Bill Nelson or whoever, that their resume isn't in depth there. So, obviously we're sensing that we're being attacked in areas where other people feel like maybe they have some weaknesses. So we're just going to ask people to take a look at the resumes, make a hiring decision just like you would in the workplace. Do you have degrees, and do you have real-world experience doing these things, or are you just giving speeches on them?
And let's talk about a couple more things. You've called yourself the conservative candidate. Do you feel like you're the most conservative candidate in this primary race, number one? And number two, what does being a conservative mean to you, or why are you a conservative?
Well, I think I'm the most conservative candidate, and you're right, everyone's claiming to be. I don't have a voting record, but we can always go back and review the voting records of everyone that's running, on whether it's Republican or Democrat, and then that's going to give us a good example of what they do under fire, so to speak. But I feel like that being a farmer is generally a conservative profession to be in. I think that having raised a son as the custodial parent, certainly most of us, when we're talking about our children, I think oftentimes we become more conservative than what we may realize. Right. I think being a military officer and even wanting to come back and serve my country again when I got ordered on the active duty the last time, I was 50 years old. So I feel like that we have a track record there that demonstrates in the face of decisions that we are very conservative. Also, I signed a 10th Amendment agreement where I totally support the 10th Amendment, the rights of the states and the citizens, and we signed the personhood amendment pledge for Florida too, for the rights of the unborn.
And you've lived those values.
I feel like I very much have lived those values. But again, I'm not trying to profess to be something that I'm not. I'm not. If I wasn't what I thought was very conservative, I would just say this is who and what I am. And we're pretty much just what you see is what you get. And we do again realize there's a lot of things being said and a lot of mud being thrown. But I would say this: I'd rather have mud thrown at me because someone thinks that I said something different than what I intended to say, versus they didn't say anything because they've never been there, never done it.
Well, that's a very, very important point that you just hit on. I think the mood of a lot of folks folks now, in my personal opinion, is that, they're maybe sick of the quote unquote insider politician, and they're maybe not feeling like they can trust politicians as much. How can people, whether they are primary voters or general election voters, know that they can trust Mike McCalister?
Well, again, I think you just look at who I am and what I've done in my life, and I feel like that the record speaks for itself. Whether it's as a parent, whether it's as a agribusiness owner operator, whether it's as healthcare career, or whether it's in the military, national defense, national security. It's pretty much what you see is what you get, and this is pretty much who and what I am. And, I'm 60 years old in just another couple of months, so I will never be a career politician. I have no time to do that, literally, when you look at my age. And, I may well would be a one-term person, but, I look at our country and I look at the U.S. Senate. One statistic that we saw, we only have about 20 or so people in the U.S. Senate now that have ever wore a military uniform. So I'm very concerned about the future of our country. You got an aggressive nation in China now building military lift capabilities with carrier task force. They obviously are developing weapons of aggression. When you look at walking out of Los Alamos National Laboratory with a set of blueprints to build an intercontinental ballistic missile, and I think we need people in the U.S. Senate that have some serious education, training, and experience in facing the global threats, whether it's patent breaching, whether it's future nuclear adversaries, whether it's proliferation of weapons of mass destruction or renegade technologies, whether it's the war on terror or a porous border. So all of these are things that we've got to look at. Well, we've got to get our businesses working, and we've got to get people back to work in our country. But again, we're going to have to protect our proprietary technology. We're going to have to do a better job with training our workforce, and we're going to have to protect ourselves against these global threats.
So last main question, what is the main reason why you're running for Senate?
Because I feel that our country is in serious trouble. I feel that we need some people in the U.S. Senate, again, not because it's a political career or it's their turn or because they're a great fundraiser. We're not hiring a fundraiser. I feel that we need some people there these next years to face the serious global threats. I mean, you got Vladimir Putin and the Soviet Union wanting to return them to their former days of grandeur. You got renegade nations such as Iran and Korea. And, of course, you got China, which is now the second largest economy on the planet, and now they are starting to flex their muscle with their infrastructure and manufacturing capabilities, their breaching of patents and stealing of technologies and applying them for military use. So these are all areas that I feel like I have the best credentials and the best expertise in to face these global threats.